That day is nearly here. Well, when the Springboks take on England at the Rugby World Cup final in Japan this Saturday, the nation will be reminded of the special moment that former captain, Francois Pienaar, led South Africa to victory against New Zealand back in the 1995 World Cup. This was the country's first major sporting event after the fall of apartheid in 1994, and South Africa's first democratic president, Nelson Mandela, used what was regarded at the time as a white man's game to unite a people or a nation that was divided. Well, someone who was part of that history is former Safety and Security Minister Sydney Mufamadi. He joins me in studio now. Mr. Mufamadi, thank you very much for making the time to come and talk to us here. You were one of the first cabinet ministers of that administration in 1994 that was called the Transitional Government, or the Government of National Unity. Share with us your fondest memory of the 95 World Cup.
Well, you know, the Rugby World Cup, which we hosted in 1995, you have to remind yourself that it was just 1 year into the new dispensation. That is one of the events which confirmed the prognosis we have about the new South Africa, that a united, non-racial, democratic South Africa has it within its power to transform South Africa's pariah status into a country that can take its rightful place in the community of nations. The fact that in those early years, both, by the way, not just in the rugby sporting code, but 1 year later we also hosted the Africa Cup of Nations in football.
Which we won.
Which then told you that indeed we had the potential as a country to ascend to the cutting edge of global competitiveness, not only on the sporting front, but in various fields of human endeavor.
Mr. Mufamadi, the country's majority look back to that day and again are reminded of that moment, as I said in the intro, of the time when South Africa came together as a people, deeply divided before that. Popular sentiment now is that we are once again a nation that is divided along racial lines. Do you agree with that sentiment, and what keeps taking us back to this behavioral pattern?
Maybe we need to again go back to what we're talking about now, which is rugby. We win the World Cup in 1995, and in successive tournaments we start declining until we again won the 2007 World Cup. Now, what this tells you is that positive progression towards the South Africa of our dreams is not guaranteed. We always have to keep our eye fixed on the ball. There was a time when, if you look just at rugby, when the momentum for transforming the sport and making it representative of the demographic reality of South Africa started to ebb. Alongside that, you also saw our global competitiveness also declining, which then means that we were not allowing all the children of this country the opportunity to realize their greatest potential. In other words, I'm saying we will either ascend as a united nation or decline as a divided nation.
Our president, Cyril Ramaphosa, has repeatedly said he wants to mirror his leadership of the country to that of Madiba's. My question to you is that, in your view, what are the strategic tasks of the moment, and can he use this World Cup moment that presents itself to take us back to some of the aspirations of 1994?
Well, the first thing to remember is that we came to 1994 because those who worked for that eventuality had a vision as to what kind of South Africa we want to build, right? So it is always important that we continue to return to that lodestar. What does our Constitution tell us about the kind of South Africa we must continue to strive for? We must know that the process of arriving at that South Africa of our vision, it's a permanent work in progress. There will be ebbs and flows along the way, but we must not lose our confidence in the vision that drove us to get to where we are. And that is the responsibility which the collective leadership of our people in South Africa in various fields of human endeavor has to carry.
In your view, if we win on Saturday, what will that moment mean for President Cyril Ramaphosa's young presidency?
Well, whether we win or lose, the issue is what is the strategic task of the moment. Now, President Ramaphosa is going to be the next chair of the African Union. South Africa is going to spend the next 2 years as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council, right? Which then means that South Africa carries the responsibility of ensuring that that the growing visibility, the visibility of the global South and the visibility of Africa grows on the international stage, because the prospect of improving Africa's condition in the world depends on what happens on those international platforms. We are ascending to those platforms at a time, incidentally, when the international trading system is in turmoil, because the country that authored it in the aftermath of World War II
is in turmoil itself, politically.
Not only is it in turmoil, but it's undermining that system.
And we're talking about the UK?
We're talking about the US. We're talking about the US. Now, the UK, together with its own allies in NATO, are also messing up with the international security system. Now, this gives us the possibility, the absence of cohesion within the global north. This gives us the possibility to stake a claim on the international table to a position which will enable us to co-author a system that is going to benefit the world as a whole.
Mr. Mufamadi, I can't let you go without taking this opportunity to ask you about this country, South Africa. We have this big brother status, if you like, on the continent of Africa. Yet there's a stigma, a recurring stigma of xenophobia. We just saw the scenes that happened in Cape Town. Whether you want to call that xenophobia, I think that's up for debate. The important element is that how do we regain that big brother complex, if you like, when we are constantly victimizing brothers and sisters from the continent?
Well, you see, the issue of migration globally is an issue which requires us to not just to look at what is happening in an individual country or in a migration corridor within one continent and say what is the solution to the problem. You are talking about what you call xenophobia in South Africa. The other day I was talking to a friend who was saying to me, you have people who migrated from their own countries, former colonies of the UK, into the UK from places like Jamaica and so on in the 1950s. They have lived there since then. They gained British citizenship, but recently they were being hounded out of the United Kingdom. So I'm saying there is a global conversation which we must have about what it is that needs to be corrected in the structure of the world economy in order to ensure that people continue to get life-giving opportunities in the countries of their origin, but also these issues of migration are just as old as modern society itself.
Dr. Mufamadi, I thank you sincerely for making the time to come and talk to us here on The First Take. Thank you indeed.
You're welcome, Claudia.
He is the former Minister of Safety and Security in the first democratic government post the apartheid era.